The date is January 1750. We are standing in the damp heart of the Dutch Republic, Amsterdam. Forget the romantic paintings of the Golden Age. The light here is not golden, it is gray, filtered through a permanent veil of North Sea mist and coal smoke. The air has a texture. It is heavy, wet, and tastes of salt, burning peat, and stagnant water. You are standing on a man-made skin. Under the cobblestones, there is no solid earth. This entire metropolis floats on millions of wooden piles driven deep into the primordial fen. It is a technological miracle built on top of a swamp. The city breathes. You can hear it. The rhythmic slapping of water against the quay walls. The groaning of wood as the foundations shift slightly in the mud. This is a machine designed for one purpose: commerce. But the engine is slowing down. The explosive expansion of the previous century has cooled into a rigid, stratified wealth. This is not a city of kings or palaces. It is a city of ledgers and warehouses. The economy here is amphibious. It relies on the water for everything: transport, defense, and waste disposal. Look at the people. They are wrapped in heavy wool and dark linen. They move with purpose. The wind cuts through the alleys, carrying the smell of the frantic industry that powers this place: herring curing, sugar refining, and the sour reek of the canals themselves. We are not looking at the rich bankers yet. We are looking at the ecosystem they built, a place where the water level dictates survival, and where the dampness seeps into the very bones of the inhabitants. This is Amsterdam, stripped of its myth, operating in real time. We cross the bridge to the west, leaving the Grand Canals behind. We enter the Jordaan. If the dam is the brain and the Vismarkt is the stomach, this is the muscle. And the muscle is cramping. The geometry of the city changes here. The streets are no longer straight or wide. They are narrow arteries, angled and confusing. This district was built for the workers, the artisans, and the refugees. And by 1750, it is bursting at the seams. Listen to the noise. It is a cacophony of foreign tongues. You hear rough French from the Huguenots, German from the laborers, and the dialect of the local poor. This is high-density storage for the city's most disposable asset: human labor. The defining feature of the Jordaan is the kelder, the cellar dwelling. Look at the ground level. Families are living below the street. In 1750, the drainage here is failing. The water table is rising. These basements are not just dark, they are perpetually wet. The walls sweat. The floor is a mix of mud and straw. There is no privacy. The street is the living room. Women wash clothes in the same canal water that receives the neighborhood's waste. The air hangs low, trapped by the narrow roof lines, thick with the smell of boiling cabbage, wet wool, and the open gutters. It is a fire trap and a disease vector, but it is necessary. Without this overcrowding, the ships in the harbor do not get loaded. This is survival compacted into a few square meters of sinking. We cross the bridge to the west, leaving the Grand Canals behind. We enter the Jordaan. If the dam is the brain and the Vismarkt is the stomach, this is the muscle. And the muscle is cramping. The geometry of the city changes here. The streets are no longer straight or wide. They are narrow arteries, angled and confusing. This district was built for the workers, the artisans, and the refugees, and by 1750, it is bursting at the seams. Listen to the noise. It is a cacophony of foreign tongues. You hear rough French from the Huguenots, German from the laborers, and the dialect of the local poor. This is high-density storage for the city's most disposable asset: human labor. The defining feature of the Jordaan is the kelder, the cellar dwelling. Look at the ground level. Families are living below the street. In 1750, the drainage here is failing. The water table is rising. These basements are not just dark, they are perpetually wet. The walls sweat. The floor is a mix of mud and straw. There is no privacy. The street is the living room. Women wash clothes in the same canal water that receives the neighborhood's waste. The air hangs low, trapped by the narrow roof lines, thick with the smell of boiling cabbage, wet wool, and the open gutters. It is a fire trap and a disease vector, but it is necessary. Without this overcrowding, the ships in the harbor do not get loaded. This is survival compacted into a few square meters of sinking brick. We step onto the wooden piles of the harbor front facing the IJ. This is the lungs of the city. This is where Amsterdam breathes in the world's wealth. The visual scale changes here. The narrow alleys are replaced by a chaotic horizon of masts and rigging. But look closely at the water. It is not deep blue. It is brown and churning. By 1750, the harbor is fighting a losing battle against silt. The great East Indiaman ships cannot even reach the quay. They sit out in the deep water, heavy and immobile. This necessitates a frantic secondary system. Observe the swarm of small, flat-bottomed boats moving like insects between the giants and the shore. This is the lightering process. It is dangerous, inefficient, and labor-intensive. Every single crate of nutmeg from Indonesia, every barrel of wine from France, must be manually lowered, rowed through chop, and hauled up onto the whetstones. The smell here is distinct. It is the smell of the naval industry, boiling pitch, hot tar, hemp rope, and wet timber. It burns the nostrils. Underneath that, you catch the scent of the cargo. Rotting grain mixed with the sharp tang of spices. Watch the dock workers. They act as biological cranes. Their bodies are distorted by the weight of the trade. There is no mechanization here, only leverage and muscle. This is the bottleneck of the global economy. If these men stop moving, or if the harbor freezes, the city's pulse stops. It is a fragile interface between the ocean's chaos and the ledger's order.
We leave the biting wind and step inside a tall, nondescript brick warehouse on the Western Islands. This is a suikerbakkerij, a sugar refinery. The environment shifts violently. Outside, it is freezing winter. Inside, it is a tropical hell. The heat hits you like a physical blow, rolling off the massive furnaces that burn day and night. The air is opaque with steam. It tastes sweet, but in a sickly, cloying way. It smells of burnt caramel mixed with something metallic and organic. That is the smell of ox blood, used to clarify the boiling syrup. This is the industrial engine that processes the colonies. Amsterdam in 1750 operates over 100 of these factories. They are ticking time bombs of fire and pressure. Observe the labor. The men here are stripped to the waist, their bodies glistening with a mixture of sweat and sticky sugar residue. The floor is treacherous, a sleek layer of molasses. One slip near the copper vats means horrific burns. Boiling sugar sticks to skin like napalm. The process is brutal alchemy. Raw, brown mush arrives from the Caribbean plantations. Through heat, blood, and exhaustion, it is forced into conical clay molds to cure. Look at the result: hard, white cones of sugar. This is the city's magic trick. It takes the raw, chaotic output of slave labor and refines it into geometric, white perfection for the tea tables of Europe. But the cost is visible here. The workers breathe sugar dust. Their teeth rot. Their lungs coat over. This factory consumes men to produce luxury. We stand on the edge of a stagnant canal. Hold your breath. The smell here is not just unpleasant, it is dangerous. It is the scent of hydrogen sulfide and ammonia rising from the water. In 1750, Amsterdam faces a hydraulic crisis. The city is choking on its own waste. The canals, originally designed for transport and drainage, have become open sewers. There is no flow here. The water is thick, black, and motionless. To survive, the city deploys technology. Look at the machine floating before us. This is a Moddermolen, a mud mill. It is a piece of heavy industrial engineering. Observe the mechanism. On the deck, blinded horses trudge in an endless circle. They drive a crude conveyor belt of wooden buckets that scrape the bottom of the canal. Watch as the buckets surface. They are filled with night soil, a toxic slurry of human waste, street runoff, and industrial refuse. This is the unglamorous reality of the urban system. This machine functions as the city's artificial kidney. Without this constant mechanical intervention, the canals would silt up within years, trapping ships and breeding plague. It is a never-ending war against entropy. The city produces filth faster than these horses can haul it away. We are watching a civilization fighting to keep its head above its own rising muck. Night creates a different city. We move to the Zedig, the edge of the harbor. We push open the heavy door of a Spielhouse. The transition is a sensory shock. You leave the freezing dampness of the street and enter a wall of heat. The air here is blue, thick with the smoke of cheap American tobacco burning in thousands of clay pipes. It smells of unwashed bodies, stale beer, and the sharp medicinal sting of Jennifer, Dutch gin. This establishment serves a critical psychological and economic function. It is the city's release valve. Look at the crowd. These are the sailors who survived the voyage to the East Indies, mixed with the local urban poor. They are here to forget the cold basements and the brutal labor. The system encourages this. The alcohol numbs the exhaustion, and the gambling tables recycle the workers' wages back into the pockets of the establishment owners. Center stage, notice the women. They are dressed in bright, mismatched fabrics, their cheeks rouged heavily to hide signs of malnutrition or disease. The interaction here looks like revelry, but it is a transaction. A dance costs a coin. A drink costs a coin. Intimacy costs more. Listen to the music. A fiddle shrieks over the roar of voices. It is manic, fast, and desperate. People are not just having fun, they are frantically burning energy before the bell rings for the next shift. It is a calculated chaos, designed to wring the last drop of value from the human capital before they return to the ships or the mud. Dawn breaks over the Amstel. The night shift at the sugar refinery ends. The fish market begins its slaughter again. The machine resets for another day. We have spent 20 minutes dissecting Amsterdam not as a museum piece, but as a living organism. We ignored the mayors and the portraits. Instead, we followed the blood in the gutters, the sweat in the refineries, and the dredging buckets keeping the arteries open. We have seen that the Golden Age was built on a foundation of mud and brutal, repetitive labor. The beauty of the canal ring is essentially a deceptive facade covering a massive industrial drainage system. If you walk along the Prinsengracht today, the visual skeleton remains identical. The brick warehouses are now expensive apartments. The toxic canals are now clean enough to swim in. The smell of rotting herring has been replaced by coffee and exhaust. But look down. The rules haven't changed. The city still floats on those same wooden piles driven into the fen centuries ago. The water is still waiting to reclaim the land. The economy has shifted from sugar and spices to data and tourism, but the logic is the same. Amsterdam is a hyper-efficient interface between the world and the Delta. The people of 1750 are gone, dissolved into the soil they tried so hard to stabilize. But the system they built, this impossible amphibious machine, survives. It hums quietly beneath the feet of the modern crowd, holding back the sea, one wooden pile at a time.
And now, as we step away from the damp stones and the breathing canals, what remains is not just an image of a city, but an understanding of how civilizations truly function. This story has taken you beneath the postcard surface, revealing how Amsterdam survived not through beauty or morality, but through system. It reminds us that every great city is a living machine, and that comfort, progress, and wealth are never accidental. They are paid for, quietly. If this journey changed the way you see Amsterdam, or cities like it, then the story has done its work. Which forgotten place should we enter next? Another European city hiding a darker past beneath its streets? A harbor, a factory town, a capital built on silence and labor? Leave your suggestion in the comments and let the next story begin where your curiosity points us. This video, like the city you've just walked through, is not the work of a single voice. It is a narrative generated by artificial intelligence, crafted to reconstruct history. The machine pauses here, but it is always ready to walk again.